Imagine storing 7,500 Bitcoins on a hard drive and then accidentally throwing it out with the trash while cleaning your house. That's one expensive mistake to make. What does this have to do with crypto wallets, you ask? Well, if James, which was his name, had backed up his seed phrase, then he would have been able to access those Bitcoins and would be sitting pretty in the Bahamas right now. What's a seed phrase, I hear you say? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this webinar is all about how not to lose $127 million. Well, it's actually about how to use crypto wallets, but I think you get the picture. Folks, greetings and a very warm, festive welcome to another webinar from ConsenSys Academy, brought to you live from 33.9 degrees latitude and 151 degrees longitude, also known as Sydney, Australia. Now, I put that last part in just to get me to remember the coordinates in case I get asked by the man himself, Vitalik Buterin, the inventor of Ethereum. And yes, he did ask me that once upon a time. So the chances are, if you're in the blockchain or crypto space, you will already know a little bit about wallets. If you're new and you want to get into the space, you'll want to know about wallets. Well, this webinar is going to provide an overview about the basics, concepts of wallets, what they are and why they are important. We'll also look at the different types of wallets, how they work, and how you can keep your cryptocurrencies or tokens safe. As mentioned by Akela, we also have a special guest from MetaMask, one of the most popular and most downloaded Ethereum wallets for creating decentralized applications. Welcome, Jason. First up though, ConsenSys is a global blockchain technology company building the infrastructure, the applications and practices that enable a decentralized world. ConsenSys Academy is the educational arm of ConsenSys to learn all things blockchains and how they impact you. Just a bit of housekeeping here that this webinar is not going to be a technical review of any particular wallet. It won't be an in-depth technical explanation about public or private keys. And it's not a blockchain primer, but we do have some courses available which will be of interest. For example, Blockchain Essentials, a neat guide into blockchain itself, and also the Blockchain Developer Program on demand that you can take in your own time. Be sure to take note of the links down below and make use of the coupon code as well. Now let's first off start with a poll. Akela, if you can kick that off, asking how familiar are you with crypto wallets? Maybe not much and you're here to find out. Maybe you've got one. Maybe you've got several, including a hardware wallet. Or perhaps you've restored a wallet with a derivation path of M446000. If you have done that before, maybe you should be hosting with me. Let's just wait about 30 seconds to let the results come through, and then we'll move on. Okay, we've got a handful, 3%, that has restored, have previously restored a wallet with a derivation path. Good on you. And about half here to find out. Excellent. Thank you very much for that, people. Let's first cover the basics by looking at what crypto wallets are and how they work. A crypto wallet is some sort of hardware or software that helps keep track of how many cryptocurrencies or tokens you own. And I use those two words interchangeably, cryptocurrencies or tokens. What's important though to note is that the wallet doesn't actually store the tokens. It's actually a window into a blockchain, showing you all the tokens that you have the ability to prove that you can spend. And there's actually a word for this, and it's called encumbrance, which you may have come across. And this means that it's the rights to or the interest in the tokens on the blockchain. In other words, your private key allows you to unlock the cryptocurrencies, providing you the rights to spend it. Now, this is important because if you lose your wallet, you don't actually lose your tokens, because if you have the recovery password, technically known as a seed, you can recover all your tokens. Unfortunately, though, if you don't have the seed, then your tokens or cryptocurrencies are lost forever. Sorry, James. Now, I mentioned I wouldn't talk in depth about public and private keys, but they are important to mention. When you download a wallet, the software generates a random number of strings called a private key. It's actually a bunch of ones and zeros. And the strength of this randomness is directly related to how secure your private key is. Now, fortunately, the software takes care of all of this, so you won't have to worry. Then, using clever mathematics, what's called a public key is generated. And then from this public key, we get a Bitcoin or an Ethereum address. Now, for those of you who are interested in the mechanics of this, feel free to check out an article that I wrote almost 3 years ago now, looking at exactly how a Bitcoin address is generated. You can see it starts off with a private key, then a public key is created. Some fancy mathematics creates what's called a hash. And then from this hash, we get a Bitcoin address. An Ethereum address is generated slightly differently, but the general principles apply. Now, the result is a cryptocurrency address that looks something like this. Oops. You can see there, it starts off with a 1, and that's important, and I'll talk about that shortly, with a whole random number of letters as well. Now, here's a fun fact. The very first crypto wallet was a Bitcoin wallet called Bitcoin QT. This was a desktop application way back in 2009. And when you opened it, you could tell if it was connected to the real blockchain called mainnet, or if it was connected to the development blockchain called testnet by the color of the logo. So it was orange for the real blockchain, mainnet, and green for testnet. Now, I know this because a lot of my research in the early days involved me practicing sending transactions on the testnet. Because as you may know, if you make a mistake, your tokens are lost forever. The very first crypto mobile wallet was created by a person called Andreas Schilbach, which provided a huge leap in the industry because we all know how important mobile is. You can see in the tweet below here, the shorter person is Andreas Antonopoulos, the famous Bitcoin evangelist. And the taller person there with glasses is his namesake, Andreas Schilbach, the creator of the very first Bitcoin mobile wallet. So these addresses, they act like a bank account number. And sometimes there are patterns in the address. For example, in Bitcoin mainnet, the real Bitcoin address, they usually start with a 1 or a 3. For testnet, it usually starts with an M or an N. With Ethereum, though, no such pattern exists. And what you may have noticed is that in the early days, Bitcoin addresses would create 100 addresses at a time. But nowadays, almost all wallets are what we call HD, or hierarchical deterministic. What this really means is that with just one seed phrase, you can generate almost an infinite number of cryptocurrency addresses or bank accounts, so to speak. If you've ever installed a wallet, you will have come across this seed as a phrase or random words such as myself, source, elevator, acid, wild, vacuum, etc. It's these words or seed phrases that you cannot lose. Guard it with your life. Because if you so happen to lose your hard drive worth $127 million of crypto, I'm just saying, this is how you recover it. And if you were wondering where these words come from, there's actually a list of 2,048 words defined. And there's a link down below called BIP39, which you can get this list from. However, good luck in trying to run through all the possible combinations. Now, wallets are important because without them, we wouldn't be able to access, to store, send, or receive cryptocurrencies and tokens. Because you need a wallet of some sort in the blockchain world to be able to take part in the blockchain token economy. Now, there are lots of different types of wallets, such as web wallets, mobile wallets, desktop wallets, paper wallets, and hardware wallets as well. There's quite a neat site called bitcoin.org for you to go ahead and understand more and be able to choose your wallet. And you can also get a sense of the various options as well. Here's a little table that can help you decide which is the best for you based on whether you think transparency is important, maybe privacy or fees, or maybe how much control you have. Let me click on the link here. And if I open up the bitcoin.org website, let me click on skip helper. And you can see, maybe you've got an Android mobile phone. These are the options that you have available to you. Maybe you've got a Windows desktop. Again, you can see the options, or potentially a hardware wallet, such as the Ledger Nano or the Trezor, for example, which we'll talk about shortly as well. Now, in the Ethereum world, there's a neat website called Etherium.org, which talks about several wallets such as MetaMask, Opera, MyCrypto, Trust Wallet, and MyEther wallet as well. If I click on this link down below, opening up Ethereum.org, you can see it's a great resource with lots of links to useful places. Down below here, we've got learn more about Ethereum wallets. And this is the site or the place where I took the screenshot from, and you can click in later on to get more information. Now, MetaMask is a really neat wallet that is in the form of a browser plugin, making it really easy not only to store, send, or receive tokens, but also to help interact and transact in the decentralized world. And we'll talk more about this with Jason later on. Next, we've got paper wallets, and these are neat in terms of having something tangible to help old school folks like myself potentially feel more comfortable. I actually ran a workshop a few years ago on how to produce these paper wallets, and there's actually a gentle art to it. For example, I'd highly recommend using photographic paper, but you want to buy double-sided photographic paper. I made the mistake with single-sided, and when you flip it over, the back does not absorb ink from a printer. So make sure it's double-sided. Get a craft knife, cut the template out, and make sure you score along the lines of where you're supposed to fold it, because you fold the private key onto itself. And then again, I actually went to the length of buying holographic tamper-proof stickers as well to seal it up, load up some tokens, and then you can give it as a gift. You'll also want to potentially use what's called a dumb printer, because a lot of printers nowadays, they store the information in memory, and technically speaking, someone could come along and extract the private key from the printer. That's if they could access it in the first place. Do note that if someone does give you a private wallet and you do not trust them, or you're receiving the wallet in exchange for something, then you want to go ahead and sweep the funds out of the paper wallet, because the person who created it always has access to the private key. And next up here, we've got the hardware wallet. As mentioned, there's the Ledger Nano, the Trezor, and I've actually got a Ledger Nano here. This is, it's not an unboxing because I've already opened it. It's a really neat hardware wallet. I can open up the metal case here. There's a digital display, two little very small buttons at the bottom there. Those are for entering your PIN number when you log in. I had a question in the past where someone asked, what happens if the buttons break, for example? That was a very good question, because what I always recommend is to buy 2 of these, because if you do lose them or if the button breaks, you can use your seed phrase, your super secret password, to restore all your funds on a second device. This is a Trezor as well, a very lightweight device. Again, 2 buttons down below, not for entering your PIN number, but it's basically yes or no. So when you send a transaction, the Trezor will ask you for a physical confirmation, and then you press yes or no using the buttons. They don't have any batteries inside them. They receive their power when you connect to a USB. Now, there's something called a Verity wallet, where you can actually generate an address with a predetermined set of characters, kind of like a personalized number plate. I found this fascinating a few years ago, so I generated one. You can see here below, it starts with it's got my name in it. Ignore the 1, which means the mainnet address. It's Sean AU. And this took me about 6 hours to generate with a graphics card. Doing it on a normal computer would have taken about 24 hours. Now, the amazing part is that if I wanted to add 1 more character to make it 7, it would have taken me about 6 months instead of 6 hours. Add another character to make it 8, and it would have potentially taken me a few years to generate. This is to highlight the time required and how it increases exponentially. The learning process in this was amazing, and I'd highly recommend going through this yourself. Now, what's also neat about this is that I can go ahead and check the balance of this public address using a website called blockchain.com, which is a blockchain explorer. Let me open this website up, hit paste, hit enter. And you can see I've got 2 options, basically because there was a fork on the Bitcoin blockchain. Let's hit BTC. And you can see there was one very, very small transaction, 0.2 millibitcoins. I'm not sure how much that is worth, way back in 2017. Now, the astute amongst us might be thinking, if this blockchain explorer can track my balance, can we check someone else's balance? Well, yes, we can. We can track the balances of most addresses, but in most cases, we won't know who the address belongs to. However, if you are the FBI or the CIA, I'm sure there are means or ways to figure this out. An interesting website is this Bitcoin rich list, which shows the top 100 Bitcoin addresses. If I go ahead and click on the link again here, you'll see scrolling down, there's a Bitcoin distribution. But what's interesting down below is there's one address at the top that's holding over $250,000 Bitcoins, worth at this point in time about $1.7 billion. There's more information here. You can see that the wallet is basically from Huobi, and that is an exchange basically. And it's called a cold wallet. Cold wallet meaning that it's something like a hard drive here, or that it's not physically connected to the internet. So it's a lot safer because people cannot hack into it. Scrolling down, you can see the other wallets here, Bitfinex, Binance, Bitfinex again, and Binance, because these are exchanges. What's also interesting to note is that you can see 3 of 7. What this means is that it's basically a multi-sig or multi-signature wallet where 3 people out of 7 must agree before the funds can be removed. Okay, and the last topic here is how to protect your wallet. Here are some best practices, but it is by no means exhaustive. First of all, I've mentioned several times, you want to back up your wallet. You don't want to store your seed phrase online, such as in Dropbox or Google Docs. It's just not secure. You also don't want to use a brain wallet, what this means is that with those seed phrases, those random words, some people like to create a fancy story and remember it in their head. It's a great idea, but as we all know, our memory fades over time. So please write it down and store it somewhere safe. You always want to keep your software up to date as well with the latest bug fixes. You want to turn on two-factor authentication. It's more secure, but don't use your cell phone because it's actually quite vulnerable in that case. If possible, use a hardware wallet. You also want to bookmark crypto websites because typing them in, you may make a mistake. You don't want to trust random URLs if you're sending cryptos. And you do want to research on the service that you're using with the word scam or review after the URL in Google, just to make sure for peace of mind as well. Okay, so that wraps up the first section here. Let's move on to the second section, part 2, with our special guest, Jason Lee, the Business and Development and Community Lead for MetaMask. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Glad to be here.
Great. Now, I'd like to start off by just asking a few general questions about MetaMask. I mean, you're the expert, so can you describe what MetaMask is in your words?
So MetaMask serves as a crypto wallet for Ethereum and Ethereum-based tokens, and it's used to manage your accounts. But it's more than that, because it's also utilized as a tool to visit and use decentralized applications on your normal browser, such as Chrome or Firefox. It's a gateway and basically a tool to use Ethereum and Web 3.0. And unlike traditional Web 1.2 structure, the user is empowered to hold their own keys, which is the authority over their account, basically.
Great, great. How did MetaMask start? I'm wondering.
So it originally started by someone named Aaron Davis, who's our founder, also goes by Kumavis. About 5 years ago, he received a grant from the Ethereum Foundation, which let him work on it full time. He felt that having someone download a special browser just to access these decentralized applications was a non-starter to adoption, which is basically what you had to do before MetaMask existed. So he started working on a web app browser, which is a browser in a browser that did Web3 injection and key management. And Dan Finley, our other co-founder, encouraged him to pivot into a browser extension, which although requires an install, turned out to be the correct approach at the time.
Nice. Now, I've always been curious about the name. Do you know where it came from and what's the deal with the fox?
Yeah, the name MetaMask came from a brainstorm session with where Kumavis basically merged complementary words together, kind of like any other name or company you would think of. Mask meaning identity, and meta is a layer above. So MetaMask is a collection of your identities. Now for the Fox logo, the capital M's in MetaMask kind of look like fox ears at the time. So it seemed to be a good mascot for the brand. And the people seem to love the fox. So it appears that we chose a good one.
Interesting. Very nice to know. Now, how big is the team and where's the HQ, for example?
That's a very interesting question that we get a lot. So there's about 21 people at this time on the team. And there's actually no headquarters. We're very distributed across 6 different countries. So we definitely do a lot of video chatting to sync up and get our work done together.
Got it. Got it. Now, I know MetaMask is huge in the Ethereum world. How has it helped the blockchain ecosystem?
Yeah, actually, Sean, I have a few slides prepared. If you want, I could share my screen and I guess we can dive a little more deeply into MetaMask.
Sure thing. Take it away.
Can you see my screen?
I can indeed.
Great. Okay, so we actually went over this a little bit earlier. We act as a gateway to connect you to Ethereum and the decentralized web. That's what MetaMask is. MetaMask provides an essential utility for blockchain newcomers, token traders, crypto gamers, and developers all alike. You have the browser extension on your computer, and you'll be able to view your account from a drop-down on the right side or in full screen mode, however you choose. And actually earlier this year, we released the mobile application for public beta. So we've gotten a lot of great feedback on that, and you're actually able to download and test it today if you go to metamask.app.link. And as you can see, you're able to view and interact with dApps on the application. We have a few popular ones that we feature. So MetaMask, like I said, helps you connect to new types of applications right on your web browser and on your phone now without running your own node, which is basically carrying an entire copy of the blockchain. We remove that process so the user doesn't have to. Right now, according to State of the dApps, which is a dApp curation website, there's about 1,200 live dApps that you're able to connect to and use with MetaMask. And at the same time with MetaMask, you always stay in control of your accounts, your funds, and your keys. So it's totally self-custody. And we believe in, decentralized systems have the power of making industries of the world more inclusive, transparent, and secure. So things like personal finance, fundraising, investing can be changed by implementing these systems, which is why we're trying to provide access to our users. And at MetaMask, we're trying to simplify and unify the world's web experience. So that's why we're building a platform where people can experience Web 2 and Web 3 applications securely and easily. So what have we built? Over the past 5 years, MetaMask has built the go-to account management platform for the Ethereum blockchain on desktop and mobile, soon mobile, still in beta. This has made the decentralized web accessible to millions of users and thousands of developers. So here's some figures: 3 million total downloads, 45,000 transactions per day on MetaMask, and 90,000 weekly active users. So we're definitely proud to be able to provide value to so many users. So for our end users, we're really trying to provide an intuitive and frictionless user experience that works across applications and devices, a customizable platform to access any part of the centralized web as they need, ultimate control over security, privacy, and the permissions that they grant to these applications. And it's a single place to manage access across blockchains and protocols, essentially. But like I said, we have a whole nother set of users, which are developers. That's why it's a tool that can be used in many different ways. It provides an access to an interoperable network of dApps, user control data and permissions, flexibility to build and share functional plugins from anywhere on the web, APIs that make highly secure programming accessible, flexible, and intuitive, and access to new cryptographic protocols, scaling solutions, and different blockchains even. So if you look at this chart, you can see 4 different areas of focus, all of which have a goal to make it easy for new users to interact with the decentralized web. If you're new to it, I'm not going to dive into all these examples, but that's just kind of what we're focused on. And at MetaMask, we want all users and developers to have options first with security in mind, giving users the power to choose what's best for themselves instead of making those choices for them. So here's actually a quick demo of MetaMask Mobile, a MetaMask Mobile feature that uses an NFC chip to prompt your MetaMask mobile app to send a payment using deep linking. So for those who don't know, NFC is the same chip they use in credit cards for tap to pay and Apple Pay with your phone, basically. So here's an example of that using the MetaMask mobile app. So there's your mobile device just scanning an NFC, and it just prompts your MetaMask mobile app to bring up a payment request. So you can do it, for example, paying a friend or even a vendor possibly. Let's see here. And another feature I like to highlight is payment requests, which is similar to the NFC chip demo I just showed you, but it's over messaging. So users that don't have crypto to begin with, but were onboarded via a friend or an event, they should be able to receive crypto from a friend. So this helps with that process. And as an application that holds currency and is used for sending and receiving, this is kind of like a basic feature that people expect because of traditional systems such as online banking and solutions like Venmo, if you heard of it. So this will feel like a more intuitive experience for users. So this is what the flow will look like. You'll have a home screen with your wallet and balance, and you'd simply go to menu, you'd click receive, and then you're going to go to request asset, and you'll choose your asset type you're requesting. In this case, I'm going to choose Ether. I'll request $20 worth, say for dinner that I paid for last night or something of that nature. And then you'll be able to pull up a QR code or send directly as a link, say via text message or chat app. And the receiver will then be prompted for this payment and can choose to pay immediately or even later when they have funds in their account. So to download the MetaMask mobile app, like I said, you can go to metamask.app.link. For the browser extension, you can go to metamask.io. These are some handles and websites where you can find out more information about MetaMask. We have a Twitter, a GitHub, a Medium. And additionally, if we're looking for another senior mobile developer, so if you or someone you know might be interested, please feel free to reach out and apply. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch for that, Jason. That NSC video example was actually very fascinating. I've never seen that. How recent is that, were you saying?
That video is actually very, very recent. Our mobile app developer just published it not too long ago, publicized it on Twitter first. So you might not have seen it because of how recent it is, but it's definitely a feature that we're very excited about because right then and there, you know, he was able to just tap his phone against the NFC and using, like I said, deep linking technology, all the context is there. You could determine, you know, what asset you want to send and the address of the person that you're sending it to. So there's no more entering in, like you, I guess, touched on earlier, a public key, which is a huge string of numbers and letters. So it removes that whole process and just makes it as frictionless as possible if they have the MetaMask mobile app.
Wow, that is fascinating. I know that I downloaded the MetaMask mobile wallet a couple of months ago, but to show the NFC part, that's really breaking edge technology. Is that right?
Of course, yeah. That's why we're definitely hard at work every day trying to make it as easy as possible and as intuitive as possible. And day by day, we're getting closer and closer.
Sounds awesome. Great. Well, thank you very much for that, Jason, and hoping you'll stick around for the Q&A afterwards.